Okay, we're going to talk about relations and functions. So let's just start with the very beginning, I guess, what a relation is. A relation is a set of numbers that are connected or related mathematically. And you've seen in a bunch of these. The simplest that we'll talk about right from the beginning would be something like 2, 5, a list of coordinates, 7, 10, etc., etc. Okay, and each relation has basically two parts. The first part would be the domain, okay, which would be the set of x values, or the set of x coordinates. It also has a range. Okay, that's the set of y values. Or the set of y coordinates. And then we have something even more specific, and that's called a function. A function is a special type of relation. Okay, a function is a special relation in which one element, that's a 1 right there, one element of the domain is paired with exactly one element in the range. And that sounds complicated and everything, but essentially it just means that when you look at a list of coordinates, something like this, then you can't have x values that repeat. So x values cannot repeat. Let's just do an example here. So here's an example of a function. You'd have a list of 4, 2. 5, 3, 9, 7. Okay, that would be a function right there. Okay. Versus one that's not a function. If I wanted to, let's do a mapping here. Let's see if you remember anything about mapping. Okay, you have two circles. 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 11. And these are my x's, these are my y's. 1 would map to 5, 2 would map to 8, 3 would map to 8, but then 2 also would map to 5. Okay, so while this, yes, this would be a function, this would not be, because 2 goes to 5 as well as 2 goes to 8. Okay? Now, within function, now remember, a function, again, is just a special type of relation. Now within that realm of functions, you have two types. You have one that would be called a discrete and one that would be a continuous function. A discrete function is a function that has a limited amount of elements in it. For instance, like the example I just gave up above, that would be a discrete function where you have a list of coordinates. Okay, it has a beginning, it has an end, there's exactly 3 elements, and that's it. There's nothing else to it. Okay, that's what we call a discrete function. Now, a continuous function is exactly what it sounds like. It will continue on forever. There's an infinite amount of points. And since there's an infinite amount of points, we don't ever list it like this. Rather, we try and use a rule or sometimes an equation. Okay, that would be a continuous function, because if I were to graph it, it would look something like this, meaning that there's all these points on here that would be part of that function. Okay, so that's the difference between a discrete and a continuous function. Now we can do many things with functions, and we are going to do many things with functions, but for now let's just do some basics. So given these two functions here, let's talk about what you would do with something like this. Now you notice we have function notation here. F of x equals 4x plus 1 and g of x equals 3x plus x squared. And so I want to know, what is g of negative 2? Well, all that means is you simply take negative 2 and you plug it into g. So I'm going to write g of negative 2 equals, and I'm just going to plug in 3 times negative 2 plus negative 2 squared. G of negative 2 is, that's negative 6 plus 4, so g of negative 2 equals negative 2. That's it. If I were to ask you what are the coordinates, then it would be negative 2, negative 2. Okay. What about this next one? Well, this next one says f of g of x. So what that means is you're going to simply take the g function and plug it into the f function. That sounds kind of funny, but let's give it a shot. So f of g of x will equal, so here's the f function, so it's 4 times, now instead of x, I'm going to put this 3x plus x squared there. Plus 1. Okay, I'm going to simplify. So it's 12x plus 4x squared plus 1. Let's just rewrite it a little bit. So 4x squared plus 12x plus 1. Okay, and that's what f of g of x means. It means plug this function g into f. Okay, let's try one more. Okay, one that might be just a little easier. What about g of f of negative 1? So this means plug negative 1 into f, get that answer, and then plug it into g. So let's try that. So we're kind of working our way inside out. So if I plug this in, 4 times negative 1 plus 1. So f of negative 1 equals, what's that, negative 4 plus 3, so it's negative 3. So then I'm going to take that answer and plug it into g. So 3 times negative 3 plus negative 3 squared. Okay, so what's that? That's negative 9 plus 9, which will be 0. So g of f of negative 1 would equal 0. And that's it. That's the basics of relations and functions.